Hello, and thank you for joining us today in our studies of the book of Psalms. Today we come to Psalm 57, and this one also has a historical backdrop for us to consider in the midst of it. It's a relatively short psalm, it's only 10 verses in length, and yet it's going to come at a time when David is on the run from King Saul. Now, he is not yet the king, even though he has been anointed as the next king of Israel. And the things that are going to transpire are going to coincide to the events of 1 Samuel chapter 22. In that chapter, David has been on the run from Saul for some time, and he is eventually going to wind up in a cave. And it is while Saul is chasing him that Saul is actually going to enter into this cave, and David and his men are going to be there, and Saul is never going to know it until after he has left the cave. And there's a lot of intricacies that we're not going to take the time to go into what transpires in that encounter that is going to take place immediately thereafter. But it is in the midst of all of this, or it is during all of this, in the time frame of David's life, that this particular psalm is going to be written. So let's see what transpires in Psalm 57. Beginning in verse 1, we read, "Be merciful to me, O God, be merciful to me, for my soul trusts in you, and in the shadow of your wings I will make my refuge, until these calamities have passed by. I will cry out to God Most High, to God who performs all things for me. He shall send from heaven and save me. He reproaches the one who would swallow me up. God shall send forth his mercy and his truth. My soul is among lions. I lie among the sons of men who are set on fire, whose teeth are spears and arrows, and their tongue a sharp sword. Be exalted, O God, above the heavens. Let your glory be above all the earth. They have prepared a net for my steps. My soul is bowed down. They have dug a pit before me. Into the midst of it they themselves have fallen. My heart is steadfast, O God. My heart is steadfast. I will sing and give praise. Awake, my glory. Awake, lute and harp. I will awaken the dawn. I will praise you, O Lord, among the peoples. I will sing to you among the nations. For your mercy reaches unto the heavens, and your truth unto the clouds. Be exalted, O God, above the heavens. Let your glory be above all the earth. As you look at Psalm 57, you somewhat have two sections to the psalm. You have the troubles and the problems that David is dealing with, the traps that he is facing. And then at the end of the psalm, you have the rejoicing because God has taken care of the issue. Let's look at a couple of things from the psalm that we need to be mindful of. The first one is found in verse 3, where there David says, He shall send from heaven and save me. He reproaches the one who would swallow me up. God shall send forth his mercy and his truth. There is a confidence with David. Notice it's not he might save me, he could save me, I hope he saves me. But rather, there is an absolute confidence in David that God will send from heaven and he will save him. That there is going to be a way for him to get out of this trouble. Many times, people are uncertain of whether or not God is actually going to help them. And so their confidence is in the fact that God exists, but their confidence is not in the fact that God is actually going to do anything, or that they are ever going to be able to say that God was on their side, or that God helped them in their struggle. And yet the reality is that God is there for us. And David has the confidence that says, I know that God is going to help me. Is the level of our faith to such a degree that we are willing to say, I know that God is going to help me. As we've seen throughout these Psalms, it doesn't mean that nothing bad is ever going to happen or that everything is going to take place exactly the way that we thought it would. But we do need to have the confidence, and we do need to have the trust and the faith in God that says, I know that He will help me. I know that He will be there for me. The second thing I want us to notice from this psalm is found in verse 6. He talks about the fact that they have prepared a net for my steps. My soul is bowed down. They have dug a pit before me, and into the midst of it they themselves have fallen. David here gives the picture of them digging a pit trying to trap him. Now, this is not going to literally be the case because the circumstances don't match this particular picture. But at the same time, it is a poetic picture that is being presented. That they've dug this pit, this trap for him, and yet they are the ones who are going to be caught in it. It is amazing how many times it is the case that when people are doing what is wrong, when there are those that are acting wickedly, it is their own deeds, it is their own actions, their own traps that they set that wind up catching them instead. Because when it comes to the heart of wickedness, it will always be tripped up by its own desires. Maybe it's by its own selfishness. Maybe it is because of impairment due to things that have been done to it, or whatever the case might be. You have a situation where more often than not, the traps that are laid wind up catching the one who was trying to trap another. In the third place, when you drop down to verse 9, David is going to conclude the psalm in the midst of his praise by talking about, I will praise you, O Lord, among the peoples. I will sing to you among the nations. There's a principle being utilized here by David that says, I am going to shout your name to everyone. I am going to praise you before everyone, before the nations, before the peoples. I'm going to make sure everybody knows who you are. That really should be our mentality as well. I want everybody to know who God is, what He does, how He's helped me, how He's there, how He loves me, how He cares. And not just for me, but for you as well. Are we carrying that kind of mentality with us? You know, we live in an age where talking about God in a public venue is not always the most accepted discourse. But rather, we want to relegate talking about God and acknowledging God and worshiping God and praising God to something that is private only. David says you're not going to keep him quiet about who God is and about the joy that he gains from his relationship with God. We need to have the same mentality. We need to have the same willingness to talk to people about God, but also to let people see God in our lives. These are some of the things that I see in Psalm 57. I hope that they're helpful to you. Next time we'll come back and we'll look at Psalm 58. I hope you'll join us then. And thank you for viewing the video today. But until next time, I hope you have a great day.